Hello friends and welcome back. So in this session I am going to cover the basic concepts of LLMs, which is called the large language models. So today LLMs are everywhere. So as an individuals we are also using LLMs, and the organizations are also using the LLMs for the automation of multiple their internal works with the help of different agentic AIs. Okay, so it is very important to understand large language models. So if you are a beginner or maybe you are working in the AI fields, okay, or you wanted to make your career in the AI, okay, so it is very important to understand the large language model, which is the core of the AI, or you can say core of the agentic AI. So let us start understanding the large language models. So as I said, we all are using the LLMs in our daily life. Okay, if I talk about the individuals, so we most of the time we are using this Chat GPT, Claude, Gemini, and Llama, right, for multiple purpose in our daily life. So these Chat GPT, Claude, Gemini, Llama, these all are the LLMs. These are the examples of LLMs, which is called the large language models. Okay, and same the different organizations are also using all these LLMs. Okay, for the automation of their internal works. Okay, but the way they are using these LLMs, but the way they make a call to the LLMs are different. So we have an interface, right, which we access from the web browser, and then we start chatting. Okay, either it is a Chat GPT, Claude, Gemini, or Llama. But when the organizations are going to use LLMs for their internal flows or internal automation of internal works, okay, so they usually make the call with the help of APIs. Okay, so that we are going to cover in some later sessions. So as of now we are just covering the basics of LLM. So what you need to understand as of now, these Chat GPT, Claude, Gemini, Llama, these all are the examples of the LLMs. So now at least you are clear that in our daily life we are also using the LLMs. Now let us talk about what is LLM. So very first thing, think of an LLM like a super well read friend who has read billions or millions of book articles website and can check with you anything. So how we are using the Chat GPT, Claude as of today, or the Gemini. Okay, we just write our queries just like we do the chatting. Okay, and then we get the response, and then we start talking about like the humans, right? Because LLMs has the brain, it can understand what you're talking about. It has the memory, it can store the content, whatever the chatting that you are doing, it is stored in the memory as well. Okay, so based on certain durations, okay, it remember everything. You can start doing chatting with today, and then you can come again tomorrow, and then you can start chatting from there, and it remember everything whatever you have been talking about to the Chat GPT or Claude or Gemini. Okay, and it remember everything. So it behave like the humans, it has a memory, it has a brain, and it talk to you just like the humans. Okay, now the second thing, how it give you the response. Okay, most of the time you will get the proper response. There are certain situations that also possible that LLM will not give you the proper information or may not give you the proper information. Okay, so I will tell you about that case as well. But most of the time, I would say around 80 or 90% of the time, you are going to get the proper response from the LLMs on your queries. Okay, so what is now LLM? So LLM means a large language model. So the first L refer trained on the huge amount of text. Second, language means work with human words and sentences. Model means a mathematical system like the brain, right? So what exactly we do, we chat with these LLMs like the humans, right? We write our queries, we talk in a very friendly way, and you get the response back in the same way, right? Because as I said, it has a memory and it has a brain. So how it is going to generate all the responses within a fraction of second of a time? Okay, how it generate the response immediately? Because it is trained on the huge amount of text. And the important thing, this huge amount of text which is available publicly over the internet, that means whatever the information that is publicly available, maybe on the different books, articles, website. Okay, so all these information, so these LLMs are trained on this huge amount of text or the data. So this is an important point, the LLMs is most efficiently work on the text. It is very efficient to read, write and the text, and then to interpret the text. Okay, so that means whatever the response that we are getting from the LLM when we start chatting with all these Chat GPT, Gemini, and Claude, etc. Okay, we get the response properly immediately because it has been already trained on the huge amount of data that is available. Okay, the second is language, work with human words and sentences. So what we do, we write just like the humans, like the we talk with each others, the humans talk with each others. We do the same thing with the Chat GPT, right? We can write the sentence is any way, even you are doing a grammatical mistakes, even you are doing a spelling mistakes, it understand it everything, right? It automatically understand that okay, you have done some grammatical mistakes and you have done some spelling mistake, and you actually wanted to say this, but you have written it some different way. But it understand everything because it has a smart brain, it has a memory as well. Okay, so that we interact with like a humans with the these all these LLMs. That model. So as I said, it has a brain, right? So whenever we talk it with all these LLMs, okay, so it behave like the human. So it has a brain and as a memory, right? So that means large language model means a model that has been trained is the huge amount of data, humongous data, okay, and then we start interacting with in a human language, and it understand everything, it remember everything, it understand everything, and then based on that it generate the response. So this is called the LLMs, and that's why it is said here, super well read friend who read millions of or billions of book, article, website, and can chat with you about anything. So what important thing that we have learned here, whatever the data that has been trained in the LLM, okay, so this is trained with the publicly available data. Okay, it's not about some personal data. Okay, because suppose that if you are going to ask it, what was my grade in the graduation, your LLM will not able to answer because that is your personal data, right? That is not with the LLM. LLM has not been trained in your personal information. Similarly, if some organization has their own internal policies, and if you are going to ask like what is the leave policies of my organization, it will not give you the answer because the LLM is not trained in your organization leave policies because that is internal to your organization. Okay, so for that we have a different way which is called a RAG. So that I will also explain in some other session in a very simple way. Okay, what is the purpose of RAG and why we use it and what is the importance of RAG in the agentic AI. Right. So LLM specifically is about to which is trained in the humongous data. Okay, and then specifically the data which is not personal to anyone, not to individuals, not to organizations, it is specifically publicly available data, right? Now how does an LLM learn? Real world analog is learning to write. So as I said, the very first part is read billions of text. Okay, so whatever the information is available on the internet or in the public network, okay, your LLMs are trained in that particular model, and once it is trained, okay, we get a model. Right. We know that there are different models of the LLMs. If you go and learn the LLMs, and even when you start chatting with the LLMs, you get an option like which model you want to select, like 4.2, 3.2, 1.2, 5 point something. Like every LLMs has a different models. So what is the meaning of models? It's very simple. As I said, these LLMs trained in the huge amount of data. Now suppose that today, okay, I trained my LLMs on certain huge amount of data, and I generated a model like 4.2. Right, but the information is keep changing. The internet or public network is keep updating the informations every day. Right, lot of information is getting updated there. So that means this model has need to be trained in the latest data. Okay, so today I release the 4.2, but after maybe 3 months of a time or a 2 month of a time, okay, I will create another model. That means I will train my LLMs again so that it should be the available with the latest information, right? Because as I said, there the multiple informations are getting updated in the public network on day to day basis, right? So that means if after 2 months I will generate a new model, okay, then I will release it like 5.2 after 4.2. Okay, now this is the latest model which is trained in the latest information. Okay, it is then that's why it is possible that sometime when we talk with the LLMs, okay, you may not get the latest or current information because the LLMs is trained on the old data, maybe some couple of months old data, and the information that you are looking for, it is the current data. Okay, but it is a recent data, and your LLMs are not trained in that particular data. So it is that model, the current model that you are selecting, may not able to answer that properly. Okay, so now the first read the data text and then find patterns, right? So what is it does when it read the billions of text, okay, see it find the patterns. Like for example, if you say after the sun, okay, so after the sun, either you will say rises or set, right? So this is a very basic sentence. When we say the sun, so most of the meaningful sentences for this particular line is either rises or either the sets. So that means whenever it read the document and whenever it start chatting with us, it first find the patterns, which is the right pattern. It automatically try to find the patterns, and then it make the predictions, like give some words, guess word, what word come next. This is the main way how LLMs work. Okay, so that means whenever we are chatting with the LLMs and we are getting the response, so how we are getting the response, it find the patterns and then it make the predictions. So like as I said, if you are writing the sentence the sun, so LLM will automatically identify internally, okay, that what could be the next pattern, could be the pattern for this particular sentence. It could be rises or it could be sets. So it make the predictions. So that means given some words, guess and what word come next. Like the first word, what would be the next word? Then what would be the next word? So it read the patterns, and then it makes the predictions what could be the next suitable word for this particular query, and then get corrected. It always corrects itself. If the response is wrong, it automatically adjusts. If it is right, then reinforce and then repeat billions of time. That means to get the proper response, the response that you are getting on the chat GPT, Claude, Gemini, LLMs, okay, whenever you're writing any query, the response you get, okay, that response is based on the billions of time it repeat itself to get the proper response, to generate the proper response in the backend. This is how it works. Now, key idea, LLMs don't think, they predict the most likely next word one token at a time. Okay, so token is another important keyword in the LLMs. Okay, we will cover that in a later session. But the important thing here to learn is it predict most likely next word. So how it generate the response? So whenever it write the some sentences, okay, the sentence include the words. So like this is the first word, then it predict the second word based on some internal algorithms. Then it predict the next word, third word, then fourth word. So it is like a prediction. It always look for the next word, and it with this particular formation it frame the sentence with the right value, proper value. Okay. Now you ask the capital of France is. Now if you say the capital of France, okay, so the response will be Paris, okay, but there could be multiple other responses as well, okay, like the Paris, Lyon, Berlin. So it does internal checks. It generate the internal score, internal scoring of all these things. It could be Lyon, it could be Berlin, it could be Paris. So it internally generate the response, okay, and then based on the internal response, it set the priority, and wherever it has a high weightage, and you get the response of same. And how it works, this is completely internal, that we will cover in some later session, because this is a this needs some time to understand how it internally works to predict the next words, to generate the proper response. Okay, so the important thing what you have to learn here, the LLMs predict the most likely next word. There is a prediction, internal predictions, how it generate the response. Okay, and it read one token at a time, and token we are going to cover in some other session. Right. So how we interact with the LLMs? With the help of prompt, right? Whatever we queries our write on the LLMs, okay, this refer as a prompt. So a prompt is simply what you type at the LLM, your questions, instruction, requests, whatever you ask to the these all chat GPT, Claude, okay, and Gemini, Llamas, this is called the prompt. Okay, and prompt has a very great importance. If your prompts are clear, then you will get a proper response, but if your prompt is not clear, you will not get the proper response. So you have to make sure whatever the prompt that you are writing or the question that you are going to ask to LLM, it should be very clear accordingly what you need, what is your requirement. Okay, as much as your prompt is clear, you will get the proper response from the LLMs. Okay, now vague prompt, for example, you tell me about dogs. If you say tell me about dog, the result could be a generic long essay about dogs in general, not very useful. This is going to give you a very long essay on the dogs without generic properties. Okay, but like if you go for a specific prompt, you want to know about top 3 dog breeds for small apartments for a busy owner. Now this is a specific prompt which is clearly giving the instruction what exactly is required. Okay, in this case you will get a focused actionable list exactly what you need. So what I'm talking about here, what is prompt? And when you write a prompt to the LLMs, your prompt has to be clear. As much as your prompt is clear, you are going to get the proper response from the LLMs. Now, other important terms, hallucination. It means when an LLM states something confidently that is completely false. Many times you will get a response confidently from the LLMs which is completely false. The reason is that, as I said, that your LLMs generate the response based on some priority. It always predict the next word and set a priority for that one, right? So even the information is wrong, it set the priority. Like for example, it identified 3 words, the priority of the words even only 2%, 4%, or even 1% out of 100%. It has to generate the response based on the prediction of the words. So if I talk about all these 3 words, the response is like this is the higher 4%. Even out of 100%, 4% is very less. But out of all these 3 words or the patterns that has been identified by LLM, this is the highest priority. So it will generate this particular word in the response. Okay, it's not like about the questions and answer. The question is this, then the correct answer is this. Okay, it always, your LLMs always has to generate the response. That's why there are a lot of time when it asks you the confidently this is the answer, but that is completely false. You may realize. Okay, Real example. For example, who wrote the novel The Blue Mountain published in 1987? It was written by Sarah. This is the response from the LLM. J. Hammond, a Canadian author known for her nature writing. But if you see the response, it is a well framed, confident response. This was the writer, this was, he has written this, but this book and author may not even exist. Whatever the book that you have been talking about, this book may not exist, but you will get the response of that, which will be very confident. Okay, and that is the reason, because it always predict the next pattern and it has to generate the response always, whether it is the answer is there or not. It will just predict the words and frame the answer for that. Okay, that's why multiple times you will see the response is not completely false, and you will not have to always go with the LLM response. It may be wrong at some places. So you have to use your intelligence as well, okay, to understand the response. So why this happen? LLMs generate the most plausible sounding next word, not necessarily the true one. They have to no fact checking engine. This is the important, right? There is no fact checking engine. That means once the question is there and the answer is generated, there is no way to cross check the answer whether the correct answer has been generated or not, because it always work on the next predictions, next word of predictions, which is called the plausible sounding next word. Okay, and that's why this kind of a hallucination is happened in the LLMs. So how to protect yourself? Always verify important facts. Ask the LLM for sources. Like suppose that if you are getting some response and you are not confident, like if the response is good or not. So what you can ask the Chat GPT, Claude, or the, whatever the LLM that you using. Please give me the source of this information. From where you have got this information. Give me the link. Give me the name of book. Or give me any other blog content in the internet, or wherever you have got this information. Give me the source of truth. Okay, so if there any source of truth, then definitely you are going to get from the LLMs. If there is no source of truth, then you will get the response, okay, there is no source of truth for this information, right? So be extra careful for medical, legal, financial topics. So if you are using these LLMs for some important critical areas of your organization or for your personal purpose, you have to make sure that if it is a medical, legal, financial topics, then you should not go directly with the recommendations from the LLMs. So hope it is clear to you what are LLM. I tried my best to explain in a simple and basic way, okay, so that you get a proper understanding. So now we have the next important topic, which is called the RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generative. Okay, so there is a great importance of RAG in the agentic AI. Okay, so what we learn in the our LLMs, okay, it is trained on the humongous data which is publicly available. It doesn't talk about your personal data or an organizational data. Now, if you need the access to your personal data for your organizational data to generate the response, so for that we have the RAG, which I am going to cover in the next session.